DOT qualified SAP for the return to duty process or the return to duty program. So this video is going to talk about what is the role of the DOT qualified SAP. I decided to share this information because I get a lot of calls, and a lot of times employers and drivers sometimes they don't fully understand what the role of a qualified DOT SAP does. And I'll also share some information about the employer's role and what they need to do, as well as the medical review officer or the MRO roles and what they need to do. And so the SAP duties involve initial assessment planning, the initial assessment, the follow up assessment. Now, that may sound easy, but there's a lot that goes into this process. And so, as a result, many SAPs will charge anywhere from $500 to $800 to provide this service. This service is not paid for by your insurance company because it is not considered to be a medical necessity. And so we're going to start off with the initial assessment planning. So, with the initial assessment planning, the SAP has to identify the type of test or rule the employee has failed or violated. As a result, when you call your SAP and you say, "Hey, I need a SAP counselor," that's one of the first questions we may ask you. What type of violation do you have? Because it's more than just CDL. It's pipeline and hazardous material. It's the transportation, the transport authority. It's aviation. It's Coast Guard. It's the Railroad Commission. And so we cover a lot of different areas. We also may do non-DOT company violations, SAP, like return to work services as well. So we're going to be asking you, we need to know who referred you, who told you that you needed to see a SAP counselor, okay? As a result, we may have to reach out to the company or either the consortium to identify the information that we need to be able to put in our initial assessment letter, right? And then we may also have to work with the company to find out what their policy is. Medical doctors, if you're on any kind of medical or medications, we may have to talk to them about that and the risk factors as far as that, and then DOT and what they may require for some safety sensitive employees that may be on certain type of medications. So we'll do the initial assessment, okay? And in the initial assessment, we will do a psychosocial and social history. We'll ask you about your medical history. We'll ask you about your family. Is there any history of substance abuse in your family? We'll ask you about your use, how often, how much, how long, when you started, when the last time you stopped. We asked a lot of different questions. This is a part of, excuse me, the clinical interview. You'll also have to fill out paperwork and clinical screening instruments that is required. We have to provide you with these instruments. And doing so, we'll evaluate all of our paperwork. We may require your drug test. So we may reach out to your medical review officer to find out the level of substance that was in your system, because that can help us also identify risk factors, your needs, and your usage. So I'm just giving you some insight on what SAPs can do to provide you with a level of care during the initial assessment that may be either education or treatment, depending on what's going on. I always remind people that people just don't become addicted overnight. You have stages of addiction. So we have to identify your stage of addiction, where you're at Is it mild? Is it moderate? Is it severe? And we also have to identify your mindset. What is your stage of change? Are you in the contemplation stage of change where you don't think that it's a problem? Contemplation, yeah, I think it's a problem and I need to probably get help, but I'm not sure if that's what I want. And then you have your preparation. I know I want to get help. I need to stop this. I need to comply with DOT regulations. And this is something that I'm ready to do. And then your action stage. Maybe you've already started a program or started meetings or some kind of substance use recovery meetings, and that will put you pretty much in the action stage. And look, I know I need to get help. I just need to maintain. I'm good. I haven't used in a while, and I have to take care of this violation. So we kind of see where you're at in the area of the stages of change. So after your assessment, face to face assessment. And so we're doing video assessments up until DOT tells us we cannot do it. Okay. I just want to keep that in mind because this video may run for a long time. So once DOT say no video, audio videos on telehealth, we may stop and we have to do face-to-face videos. So we'll administer your assessment, your formal assessment tools. We'll do our clinical interview, and then we will recommend you with a level of care, most appropriate, whether it be education or treatment. You will have to do a consent to release your information, your letters or your assessments to your employers, to any potential employers. If you're not currently employed, you must sign a consent form to release information so that we can report where you are in the clearing and the status of your return to duty process. Also, the SAP, the first thing that we'll ask you also before we do any of this is you have to designate us as your SAP in the FMSCA clearinghouse in your CDO record. So no SAP will be able to provide services to you if you're a CDO driver. You can only have one SAP through this process unless something happens to the SAP that you had, whether it be God forbid they're deceased, they're hospitalized, or they're unable to do this assessment because they didn't keep up with the license requirements, or they just chose, you know what, I'm not going to renew anything, and then you'll have to have another SAP under those conditions. And so that's the initial assessment. Once we've conducted the clinical interview, the clinical instruments, and we provided you with your level of care, we type up a letter. Okay. That letter, if you don't have an employer or designated employer representative involved, then we will most likely send a letter to you, your initial letter to you, minus the testing plan for the follow-up. You won't get anything like that. After your initial assessment is complete, we've typed up your letter, let you know what your recommendations are. You have to complete those recommendations. You will not be able to come back for your follow-up session until you complete your SAP recommendations. I have people, I got to get back to work. They're very rude. I don't have money. The SAPs are here to make sure that you comply with our recommendations to reduce risk factors and to ensure that we are public servants, that when you get back out there and you get in your safety sensitive positions, the public safety is okay. We have to make sure that the public is safe. You are a public servant. SAPs are a public servant. Okay. And everything must go according to the FMSCA or the DOT federal regulations. Okay. Just keep in mind, everybody gets audited. Everybody has to comply with DOT. So yes, you have to complete your SAP recommendations. There's no way around it. If you don't agree with the recommendations, you can't go and say, I'm going to get another SAP. You can't do that's not a reason to get another SAP. DOT won't allow it. Okay. And so once you complete your recommendations, you let your SAP know. We gather all the information from the referral source, the treatment provider, or the education program. We ask them how you did in the program. If they have any recommendations, If you've completed a certificate of completion, we'll ask for all of that information. We'll staff your case with any of your MRO or whoever may be a part of that case. If you are an employer, your company DER, and then we'll determine that you are eligible for your follow-up evaluation. Keep in mind, the SAP has already updated the FMSCA CDL driver's clearinghouse record if you are in the clearinghouse, okay? And so now you will book your appointment, come back for your follow-up. We'll do the follow-up assessment. We will do an interview with the treatment provider, treatment resource. We will do an interview with you. We will go over your follow-up to let you know that you must stay into compliance. We'll find out what you learned about the program. We'll get some feedback information from you. We'll go over what is going to happen next. Like, you must take a return to duty drug test. You must pass it. If you fail the return to duty drug test, you have to go back through the SAP all over again. Yes, you will have to do it all over again. So your return to duty is you must pass your return to duty drug test. We will put you on a follow-up testing plan. We will explain that to you. Your test for your follow-up will be observed. Someone, the collection, they will be in there with you while you provide a specimen for your follow-up and your return to duty test. This is DOT federal registrated requirements. It's the law. You got to do it. So don't go off at the collector because they're doing their job. Okay, you have to be observed. Okay, that's in the policies and procedures. You can't get around it. I've had people to call me and say, I don't want nobody in here with me, and that's violating my rights. I'm sorry. If you're going to be a safety sensitive driver and you're going to be a public servant, that is a requirement. Okay, you can choose not to, but that's going to hit you with another violation if you don't provide the specimen and you don't show up at the testing site when you are appointed to show up at the testing site to do your return to duty drug test or your follow-up test. The SAP counselor will not send you for a return to duty drug test or a follow-up test. This is only done by your employer or your potential employer. Okay. If you are an owner operator and you have your own authority, then you'll have a consortium or third party administrator that will send you for your follow-up test. Okay. Once that is negative, your return to duty drug test and your follow-up test. Once those are negative, you continue to drive. Okay. You must show up at the testing site if you are ordered to take a test. If not, that will hit you with a refusal to test. So this is just some information that I'm giving you guys. This is a lot of heat that I get when I'm doing my services as a qualified SAP. There's some other things involved. Once the SAP has completed the initial assessment, you've went back to work, your information, your return to duty drug test has been entered into the clearinghouse. If you decide to go to another employer, your paperwork must follow you. Okay? You don't call the SAP and say, I'm getting a new employer. Can you send my paperwork? Any qualified, experienced SAP is going to say, hey, okay, your paperwork, your current employer is supposed to, if they've employed you or you're a potential employer, they have to get with their employer in which you did your return to duty drug test and any follow-up testing schedule. They have to interview that employer. They can go back 2 years. They have to get all of your information, your return to duty drug test, any concerns that they may have, and any follow-up tests, because you are still in the program because you have to complete the follow-up testing plan schedule. So once I close you out, if you come back and you need any information or the employers needed the information and the former employer don't provide the information to the new employer, we're going to charge some administrative fees. Any SAP is going to charge some administrative fees because that's a lot of work. We have to pretty much do the onboarding process all over again with the new employer. Okay, we also have to interview you to make sure you don't have any new violations or anything like that. So we'll send you some paperwork for you to verify I don't have any new violations. So, and also the new employer or the potential employer has to resume the follow-up testing plan. So you're still in the return to duty program. You may have completed your SAP services, but you're still in the return to duty program. And so that means you still have to complete step 6. Okay. Remember, you have 6 steps to complete. If you look at your clearinghouse CDL profile, if you have a violation, you'll see steps 1 through 6. The SAP providers will carry you all the way up into step 4. Step 5 is your return to duty drug test. Step 6 is when you complete your follow-up testing schedule within 3 days of that negative test date, that follow-up test, the last one, they have to enter that in the clearinghouse, and then you will be completed with step 6. Okay, so if you have any questions, I always allow people to give me a call. I provide about 10 minutes on the phone at the most, free consultation. My number is 713-266-2090. If you need services, SAP Return to Duty services from a qualified, experienced SAP, which I consider that I am, you can book an appointment online at www.monamentors.us. Thanks for tuning in to my live video, and I look forward to serving you, answering your questions, and giving you more videos so that you can stay on the road, stay clean, and enjoy doing what you love doing. Okay, bye bye.